So we started out as a family business back in 2008, and we saw there was a need for a sort of a niche area really in energy assessing of buildings. The UK government brought in some legislation which requires energy performance certificates for the sale or letting of a building. So we saw that there was a sort of army of energy assessors that needed to be trained. So we started up Energy Trust, and really we've been delivering those courses ever since. And we've gone through sort of various ups and downs and various growing pains. And the industry itself has evolved now. It's quite a large industry, and it's not just focused on sort of energy performance of buildings, but we're also heavily involved in the retrofitting of our existing building stock. So I think there's some government targets to reach net zero by 2030 and 2050. And we're looking at retrofitting sort of around 28 million homes, existing buildings that, some of them are over 100 years old in this country. So there's a mammoth task ahead, and there are tens of thousands of professionals needed to carry out these various roles. So we're very much lined up with all the various qualifications that need to be achieved through sort of government funding, through awarding bodies. And we've primarily started off with a paper-based system, very much physical paper folders and portfolios lining the back of my car for many years. And as technology has improved, we sort of went down the road of using digital e-portfolio systems. And we've got to a point in the journey where, particularly thanks to lockdown and COVID, we saw a real demand for online learning, self-paced learning, and digital assessment. And that's where we really went on a bit of a hunt for a provider that could give us a system that allows to remotely and digitally assess our students, and to do so in a smooth, efficient manner. And I think Cloud Assess is the platform that we've discovered, and we've now obviously got to know you guys a bit better. We're really happy with what we're seeing, and excited about the future, really developing it with our future qualifications. Yeah, there's a real mixture, to be honest. We get a mixture of sort of new entrants, people that are looking for a career change. I think the sort of green energy sector is quite attractive to many people for many different reasons. So we do get sort of people from all sorts of backgrounds, but we also do primarily get people from the property industry. So typically sort of estate agents, letting agents, installers of boilers, insulation products, solar PV panels, renewable technologies. So we do get a real sort of mixed bag of ages, genders, and different sort of backgrounds. We tend to typically find most of our students are of a demographic where they're not so IT literate. So that's been a bit of a challenge for us. And as technology has sort of advanced, particularly with introducing sort of iPad apps and tablets and things into the surveying roles, many of these sort of building surveyors, there's been a bit of a challenge there, sort of training these individuals to get used to tapping on a screen and filling in boxes on a tablet, as opposed to filling in a paper form, which perhaps they would have been traditionally more familiar with. So I think our teaching methods have become more digital. Our assessment methods now are aligned with that. And I think most people, they do find that the learning journey is a lot smoother than they expect once they're on it. They're not so, a lot of people are worried about that sort of online learning sort of aspect. I think people are getting more used to it, particularly in this day and age. A big part of what we were looking for was not just an assessment platform where we can assess students' progress and work and their evidence that they produce, but also we wanted to bolt into that the learning aspect of it as well. So much of our sort of classroom-based training that we've delivered for years, we've evolved into a mixture of hybrid self-paced learning with self-paced content through SCORM packages, which bolt in very nicely to the Cloud Assess platform. We've also integrated online live learning, primarily through Zoom, but we do use other platforms. So it's great that we can schedule those Zoom meetings and put them into the Cloud Assess calendar, so the student can kind of see they might have an appointment booked with their assessor to discuss a certain topic. And we still are offering the traditional classroom environment to many of our students that want it. So it helps in the physical classroom. Our assessors can have an iPad in front of them and they can mark off certain criteria as a student achieves them, through a physical observation, maybe a site visit, for example. So we're trying to sort of tie together the three popular learning platforms really, which is classroom, live online, and self-paced. And Cloud Assess seems to allow us to manage all of those in sort of one coherent system. So that was, many of us are familiar with, well, not just Apple, but I guess iPhones, other brands are available, but I think people are used to that slick, smooth, efficient tapping on a screen, touching an app, clicking on a drop-down box, and the way it's laid out and the UI, the graphical interface, it's all very slick. And what we've found is many of these sort of off-the-shelf e-portfolio, learning management systems, assessment platforms, many of them have been around for quite some time, and they're a bit sort of archaic in their graphical interfaces and the way that the learner interacts with the platform. We spend a lot of our time in our older system just educating our students how to use the system, which really, the Apple test, it should be intuitive to them. They log in, it's pretty obvious what they need to click on, what to tap on, and the fact that they can interact with it dynamically, whether it's a smartphone, on a smaller screen, or a tablet, or even a desktop computer or laptop. We felt that's what set Cloud Assess slightly aside from some of the other platforms that we've looked at. Just the user friendliness of the user interface, really. I think particularly through lockdown, many training companies like ourselves, we had to pivot, we had to move everything online. So part of that process was, interviewing. I think we looked at least a dozen separate platforms that are out there. And there are a lot of platforms. There's a lot of learning management systems, a lot of e-portfolio systems. And I think what we struggled to find was one system that could do it all. We found some systems that were really great at presenting the learning content, and the user interface was fantastic for the learner, but the back end of the system and the back office sort of side of things was not very intuitive for our assessors, and certainly not very welcome to our external auditors and the regulatory bodies that we have to deal with. So we found that all these off-the-shelf platforms, they all kind of do bits of what we need, but it was difficult to find one that did everything. And we looked very carefully before we committed to a system. We didn't just sign up to the first one that came along. And it was really by chance that we discovered Cloud Assess through just a Google search after sort of searching for almost 2 years. So we're really happy with the platform that we've found, and we can see how it can tick all of our boxes really for the learner experience, but also the back office experience, and the reports we can generate to keep our funding suppliers happy and our awarding bodies that sort of audit our work. So we feel that, although it is to an extent an off-the-shelf system, it's very modular. So we can kind of build the courses around different units, different assessments, and we can kind of, almost like Lego blocks, we can build it how we want it to work. Whereas some of these other systems we looked at were very much prescribed, and you had to do it a certain way, which didn't quite fit with our business model. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I'm glad that we were patient and we didn't just jump on board with the first. I think that's a key phrase there, scaling up. Because our industry is growing and we're seeing more and more demand for these courses, we're seeing the volume of students increase. And naturally our business is growing, and with that comes growing pains. So we've picked up on that within the Cloud Assess platform, we have these automations and workflows which can be really helpful, particularly triggering emails to be sent to various individuals at key points during a learner's journey. That's going to save us hours and hours in admin of having to check things manually. We're also working through integrations with other systems such as Zapier and our CRM platform. So much of the students' data is transmitted from when they first make a course booking with us. It automatically sets up their learning account. They can log in, access all the information immediately, and we can set what we call journeys, which sort of drip feeds the information to the learner in a nice, manageable, bite-sized way, so they're not overwhelmed with too much technical content all at once. And that can be set to trigger, as I say, integrations with our other third-party systems, sort of massively automating our workflows, which is going to save us, thousands of man hours each year, which of course is an overhead to us. So we're excited about what we can do with that in the future, because there's all sorts of automations we haven't even looked at yet, which I think we will evolve and grow with. And that ultimately benefits our learners, but it also benefits the sort of back office staff and the administration side of it as well. think the reporting features from Cloud Assess will allow us to keep a much sort of tighter, closer eye on exactly how students are performing, their sort of real-time progress, and also the ability for our external auditors to monitor that. And perhaps, you know, we do some training for some large employers, so they might send a large group of students onto a course with us, and giving third-party access to those companies, you know, managers and employers and HR, etc., so they can keep track of what our students are doing. And ultimately, they're the ones that paid for the course, so they want to keep an eye on how their employees are progressing, perhaps. So I think those metrics will be measured through reporting, and that will be something we can compare then against our previous systems that we've used, which, to be quite honest with you, had very limited reporting functionality. So previously, we were unable to keep sort of accurate reports on where learners are up to. It was a little bit more of a case of we had to log in on each one manually to see what was outstanding. And we regularly get questions on our previous system from students saying, you know, where am I up to? What do I need to do next? And these are common sort of emails that we get through our helpline on a daily basis. So I'm hoping much of that will be eliminated, because we're now sort of pushing our students through a journey, and it's very clear when they log into their dashboard what they've done, what they need to do, what's next on their to-do list. And the fact that we can sort of gate things and release assessments and learning material at certain stages is really valuable to us, because I think that will help the learners sort of just manage their time better, and which ultimately means, you know, our assessors will see efficiencies in their time as well. We have regular external audits from what we call the awarding body. So these are the organisations that effectively regulate our qualifications, and ultimately they answer to the government. So it's pretty serious stuff, and they come in, they like to have a deep dive on sort of how we assess our students. They look at lots of the records that we create. So the paper trail and the audit trail is really valuable and really important. And what happens with our regulators is there's an element of trust that they award to their training providers, something known as direct claim status, which effectively allows a training provider like ourselves to claim a student certificate before an audit takes place. So they're giving us a degree of trust. And the reason that we've got that direct claim status is primarily thanks to the Cloud Assess platform, because we can show an auditor, you know, they physically visit our building, they sit in an office with us, we can put it up on the big screen, and we can say, you know, here's a candidate, John Smith, here's his exact learning journey, with dates, times, when he's logged in, when he's completed an assessment. There's this very clear audit trail which nobody can manipulate. So, you know, we've got a real quality assurance process there. And that's so important, because without our awarding body, we wouldn't have a business, because they can take that away from us at any time. And they do, and they're pretty strict. So it's very important that we're providing that real clear audit trail. And Cloud Assess allows us to do that very efficiently, and keeps that sort of version control of any assessments, which I think is really important. So if we've changed something, perhaps we've updated an assessment, there's a history of who did what and when. I think that's really important from a regulatory perspective. And just to add on to that, we've recently acquired some government funding to fund most of our qualifications for a period of time. And part of our application to apply for that funding, we included Cloud Assess as the platform that we were going to manage all this through. And having seen that, they were very happy with what they saw, and that they allowed us then to have access to the funding. So really, it's thanks to Cloud Assess in part that we've acquired this government funding. Digital online learning is here to stay. I think live online teaching is a thing now that people are comfortable with. I do see, and for our business specifically, we want to develop the self-paced side of things a lot more. I think automation is very important for efficiency from a business perspective, but there's a danger that you can lose the student a little bit. You know, not everybody is super self-motivated to log in and read through reams and reams of sliding journey with assessments to back up their competence, and trying to mix that in with a hybrid approach, with whether it be online sort of webinars and Zoom calls, or whether it be physical classroom-based training as well, and a mixture of all of the above. And I think longer term, we're very interested in developing and introducing things like virtual reality and augmented reality into our training in the future. And that's something I can see that we can build into our cloud assessments, and embed, various different types of material and content, including virtual reality and things like that. For us as a business, there's a cost involved with these things, and I think you guys are very reasonably priced. We've looked at some platforms which are not a million miles away from what we needed, but they were very expensive, and there was lots of bells and whistles that we probably would never have used that we'd be paying for. So I think just for any future customers of your own, you guys have got quite a reasonable pricing structure, and it's been great to work with you in terms of you've listened to what we've asked, and you've kind of addressed and delivered a product and a service that I think is at the right price point we're happy with, particularly the onboarding journey as well that we've had with Alex over the last few months. I think it's that attention to detail. You feel like you're kind of part of something, and you feel that you're being listened to as a customer, which I think is really valuable, because it's lost in many experiences for people these days. So we've had a really positive experience so far with sort of the onboarding process. We're just looking forward now to really ramping up the numbers of the students that we train, and that scalability that we can clearly see a path now.